Welcome to the BikeRadar Podcast. I'm Rob Spedding, I'm from BikeRadar, and I am joined today by Tom Marvin.
Hello.
He's a technical editor on BikeRadar, and Warren Rossiter, senior technical editor for road cycling here on BikeRadar and Cycling Plus. And today we are going to be talking about bikes, obviously. We're going to be talking about whether you can have too many bikes, but really, in this sort of time of versatile gravel bikes, adventure road bikes, and actually really versatile road bikes, do you actually need more than one bike in your garage, in your shed? Is N+1 dead? You know, N+1 is the ideal number of bikes. N, the number of bikes you've got, and +1 is the ideal number of bikes. So you always need to buy another bike. I think, let's kick off, Warren, taking out all the test bikes that you have at the moment, because you probably have about 700 bikes in your garage. How many bikes do you actually own or have as regular rides?
There's two different answers to that. Own, it's close to 20.
You own, okay.
Yeah, they're
So
actually working bikes. There are more than that aren't used or are, half built, half
You've
restored.
got a problem.
You're going to be arguing for, just one bike's enough, right?
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom,
Yeah.
how many?
About 10% of that. So I've got a gravel bike and a road race bike, a racy road bike.
Okay.
But I would argue that N+1 is the perfect number.
Okay. And personally, I have at the moment, I think I've got 4 bikes that I'm using. I've got a road bike, an endurance road bike. I've got a winter bike, an old winter bike with mud guards, aluminium frame. I've got a hardtail, very cheap mountain bike that I just bumble around with the kids. And I've also, at the moment, got a folding bike. Tom, you're going to argue that we need more than one bike, even though you have got more than one bike, strictly speaking.
Okay, I mean, in drop bars terms, I've got a race bike and a gravel bike. I also have, obviously, mountain bikes and e-cargo bikes.
Mm-hmm.
And my argument for N+1 being the perfect number of bikes is that cycling, if you look at it outside of the utility aspects of getting to and from work, cycling is something to enjoy and a hobby. And different bikes do different things very well. And if it's something you enjoy, why not?
Okay. And Warren, I mean, you've got lots of bikes.
Yeah.
But you can see the idea of having one. And I suppose in context, we've had a load of bikes launched this year, gravel bikes mainly, but they've got big clearances. You can swap wheels, so you can have a 700C, you can have a 650B, which kind of really increases the versatility. That's the gravel bike kind of area. We've got suspension coming in, we've got one-by drive chains, but we've also got road bikes like the new Damani, which, although ostensibly a fast-riding, almost aero road bike, you've got room for fat tyres.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming for the last few years. It's mainly since disc brakes came in. Disc brakes came in on a road bike. It's just free design because you're not limited by a caliper, a rim brake caliper which limits tyre size. It just became that's all you could do with a road bike. Now design has been freed from that, and the design has been freed from that, and aerodynamics is coming more into play, not just on super fast aero road bikes, but on all road bikes. There are some advantages to giving bigger clearances over the tyre because you're dealing with less air disruption. So it's kind of what's come from advances in disc brake road bike design has made these bikes much more versatile. It kind of, it started with things like the Roubaix, and I mean not the current Roubaix, but the previous generation one where they first introduced Future Shock. That was a bike built for the cobbles and etc. etc. But ostensibly it's a really good gravel bike. You could get like a 32C tyre in there, providing you were clever about tyre setup and didn't go too high pressure or whatever, and you went tubeless, so you could cope with not getting pinch punches, etc. It's just as capable of a gravel bike as most gravel bikes out there, even though it's essentially a road bike. And there are lots of other examples of that. One of the guys I know that works for Cannondale, he rode Grand Euro Scotland on a Synapse, and I was asking about it. He said, "Well, I didn't really struggle.
Right.
I just put some cyclocross tyres on it, and it was fine."
Is he very good at riding bikes?
He's a good bike handler.
Yeah.
But not super fit or super fast. Just it just found it was, it's probably not the optimum, but you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Does it depend on the type of riding, particularly on the road, the sort of riding you're doing? Do whatever way you look at it when it comes to buying a bike, do you always have to ask yourself the same question first, which is, what do you need the bike for? So if we look at BikeRadar readers and BikeRadar users and the magazine readers, Cycling Plus and MB UK, very wide range of different disciplines that they take part in, but ostensibly they all just ride a bike. That's the one thing. So if you're looking at what it is you need a bike for, is that how you answer the question? So, well, I need it for shopping, I need it for cyclocross, I need it to go touring on, I need it to do sportives on. You can easily go, well, I need 4 bikes there. But that sort of list as well, could you quite easily say, I just need one bike, Tom? I just need, it's a particular bike that's going to do everything.
I guess if you're happy for compromises, then you could easily compromise on a lot of those things with that one bike. The gravel bike I've got or ride a lot is that Lauf. It is fine on the road. It's got drop bars. It's got the shape is fine. Okay, it's got gravel tyres, so it can handle some of that off-road stuff. It's got that little 30mm suspension, so if I want to do slightly chunkier off-road stuff, it's actually relatively comfortable on that. So maybe I could get rid of my XC bike. And if I want to cruise to and from work, well, it's really comfortable on rough, horrible roads. So if I'm riding through the centre of Bristol, it's actually quite a pleasant place to be. And it's got disc brakes, so it's reliable regardless of the weather. I can put mud guards on it. So that bike, I feel, could do 90% of, maybe not 90% of my riding, because I try and ride trail and enduro bikes a lot, but of that ilk, it could do all my riding. So
you, as a mountain biker, first and foremost, you only need one road bike.
I only need one road bike, but I still want more than one road bike. Okay. I still want a gravel bike that's dedicated to that, and I still want a very racy road bike because I like going fast.
But if we talk about a gravel bike, really racy road bike, we could look at the bike of the year, the BikeRadar bike of the year from 2019. Yeah, that was the
Rondo,
the
HVRT, which I've kept riding for this year.
Talk us through it. I mean, what makes that bike? If you were going to make the argument for you only need one road bike,
that's the poster boy for the argument to have one bike, because it's dual wheel size. Dual wheels. I mean, that's what I'm saying is the argument of having one bike. I don't mean it's just one bike. It's one bike that can have multiple setups. Now that's like the HVRT. I'm running that with in its road guides. It's on 58mm deep carbon aero wheels with 25mm tyres, and it's super fast. But then I can also put a 650 wheel on it with a 47C tyre on it, and it's got the clearances for it, and it's a super fast gravel bike at the same time. But with that, they've also brought in the other thing where they've got the chip in the fork, which actually it alters the ride position, so it alters the stack and reach, but effectively. So in its low position, its more aggressive race position, for the size of bike I ride, for a 58, when you look at the numbers, the stack and reach on it are pretty much identical to a Cannondale Super 6 Evo, which is one of the best handling road bikes there's ever been, and it's really close to it. You flip that chip, it raises the stack, shortens the reach a little bit, and it's actually really close to a Cannondale Synapse, which is a bike I own. And so
why you like it?
That's why I like it, is because it felt familiar straight away, but also it does handle in 2 completely different ways. If I want to go out and do like an hour blast, as fast as possible, I can put it in its aggressive trim on the deep wheels. If I want to go cruising and ride all day, I just flip that chip, relax the hand in, and go out for 6-7 hours, and and it feels as good as most endurance bikes out there. And so when you're getting bikes that can do that, and we're also seeing that this year on the gravel side of things. I'd say case in point of that is Cervelo's new Aspero. Effectively, the geometry of that bike is pretty much identical to their R3. Yet it can take dual wheel size. Yet, it's a very, very capable gravel bike. It's a super aggressive, super fast gravel bike. It's a gravel bike for racers, but on the road, it doesn't feel compromised. Especially if you can switch out the wheels and get some road tyres on it. I can't. I mean, when I was speaking to the fellow guys about it, I was sort of going, "Do you not worry this is going to kill the R3 because it's not heavy? It's a 900-gram frame. It's a sub 8 kilo bike." And if you put a lighter set of wheels on it with road tyres on it, it's going to be, competitively light.
And are they worried, or are they not?
Well, I mean, no, I don't think so. But I do think that in the not too distant future, we're going to see Convergence. At the minute, road bikes are splintering like mountain bikes did a few years ago, where you get trail, enduro, XC, extreme XC, downhill, and you just get these subgenres and subgenres of bikes. And road cycling was looking like it was going to do that, with gravel, with endurance, with fast endurance, with aero road, with like a climber's bike, etc. We ended up with this disparities coming apart. But then this year, there's bikes like Orbea's new OMX, which is aero optimized, super light, super fast, super aggressive, but still take a bigger tyre. And now you look at, say, a bike like that, and it almost eliminates the need for their aero Orca and their lightweight Orca. You can almost think, well, wouldn't that all become one? I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years, say from Specialized, the Tarmac and the Venge become one bike. Because the Tarmac's almost as aero as it. It's a bit lighter. And if they can keep developing at the rate they've been developing over the last few years, those two bikes will just converge. So you'll have Roubaix and you'll have the race bike.
Yeah. It's interesting. We've talked on this podcast about the whole gravel bike idea, the idea that this is a conceit of the bike industry to make people buy more bikes or buy that N+1. So you've got your road bike, you've got your commuting bike, you've got your folding bike, you've got your mountain bike, but you need a +1. So let's invent something called the gravel bike that will make people spend their £1,000, £2,000, £3,000 with us.
And importantly, forget the cross bikes.
And forget the cross bikes, but they're still there. That's your N+1 +1.
That's one.
But it actually seems to me that the innovations in road seem to be coming from gravel, and rather than making people potentially buy more bikes, they're almost, it looks to me like the industry, are they doing themselves out of a bit of business, Tom? Are they sort of...
I think, as I said, there has been that sort of conspiracy. You see it a lot in comments of the N+1. And yeah, I am going to argue that N+1 is the future, because I like owning different things, and I do think that you can have a specialist machine that is so tuned for exactly the right thing that it's more fun to go and ride, like a real racy bike on the road than it is to ride a gravel bike on the road, even if you're going to change the tyres and the wheels and all that sort of thing. But the argument that you have, Warren, especially with the hurt from Rondo, it is very very in a lot of ways.
I mean, that's just because we're all scared of Warren.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm arguing for only really needing one bike, but I'm thinking from personal terms, and people riders like me, don't race, too old for that. But like riding fast,
you could still do it, mate. You still got it.
Like riding fast, like riding all day, like riding variety.
Yeah,
and having a bike that
in one ride.
In one ride, yeah. I like heading out on the road for a couple of hours and then seeing a byway or a dirt track and going, I wonder what's down there. I'm going to go and explore. And I love the freedom that gravel bikes give you on that. I've got no interest in bike packing, because I'm an adult, I can stay in hotels. My idea of touring is a credit card in my pocket and a laundry service at a hotel. I don't want to be carrying bags. I don't want to sleep in a tent. It just seems,
That's fair. I think what the argument then is that sort of the contradiction or the nuance between something that is compromised and something that's versatile. Because something that's versatile is inherently compromised in all the things it's potentially able to do.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think we should be seeing Pro Tour riders heading out on a GT grade or whatever. It's never going to happen, and it should never happen. The last bike that I bought myself was a giant TCR Advanced SL. A super light, super aggressive race bike. And that's because I'd had that as a long termer. Absolutely fell in love with it.
And that's when you still thought you could make it as a pro, wasn't it?
No, it's just I like the colour.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that's how you should choose a bike, is actually just on the colour. I like the colour. I'm going to have it. Red is faster, but the HVRT, the Hurt, the colour, lovely sort of purple one that we had, sweet. I mean, obviously, we're arguing not for the sake of arguing, but there are very good reasons, and I suppose to have more than one bike. If you're not like Warren and you don't head out on the road, think, right, I'm going to go up that sort of dark, dirty alley. You don't sort of think, I'm going to go off onto the Salisbury Plain. We should probably stop that, and I could start that again.
I like the
deep, dirty alley sounds so seedy, but you know what I mean. it's kind of like he does go down dark, dirty alleys. I mean, it's something we try to stop him doing. But if you want to race, you still need a race bike. If you want to do TTs, you definitely still need it.
And as Tom said, like cyclocross. And I actually think that's another thing that's happened because of gravel bikes. Cyclocross bikes have got so much better. Because low-end cyclocross bikes always used to be the choice of the commuter. So low-end cyclocross bikes always had fixtures for mudguards and bottle cages, etc., etc. You know, they're full fittings, all extraneous stuff if you were a cross rider on a budget. Now, all of those entry-level, low-end cross bikes have done away with all that stuff because there's a gravel bike in the range that fulfills all that needs.
And probably does it better.
So cross bikes have got purer and better for the advent of gravel.
And that's where having that nichification, is that a word? Where you know, that means that each of those bikes can become more specialist and better at what they do, while also
but
being more versatile.
But that's niches in racing. And I still think that's always going to exist. But I still think, like on the road, we will see a convergence between aero and standard road bikes, you know.
Yeah.
But
because aero road bikes historically have always had that compromise to be as aero as they are. And it's always been about weight, and it's always been about, you know, they probably don't handle quite as well as their racy equivalent. Now the lines are so blurred, you know, if you like blind tested, say the Venge and the Tarmac, you'd be hard pushed to tell the difference.
So you think we're going to see a narrowing, perhaps, of ranges?
I think the road bike will return to how pure it used to be, where you just had the pro level race bike,
23mm tyres.
Yeah. It wasn't like the rider just had, you know, he got to start a stage with your bike, and now he gets to start a stage, and which one do you want?
Right.
You know, there's 2 or 3 options in our range now, and I think that we might see that slim. Apart from things like the classics, where bikes like the Domani and the Roubaix, and you know, where they're necessary because of the, you know, conditions underfoot. But I do think that the general rider's bike, the big volume selling bikes, are going to keep going down this much more versatile path.
So if someone came to you and said, I want to get a bike that I can ride on the road, you know, I just want a road bike, in what direction would you, this is the first bike I've ever bought, or I'm coming back to cycling, or where would you point them?
I guess if they're coming to me saying, no, I want a road bike without specifying gravel or racing, or, you know, it would have to be the endurance road bike, something with good tyre clearance for, you know, as I say, up to a 32, whatever it is, but maybe a slightly more road bent, you know, like the Silence. You say, you know, if you can get around a grandeur, that probably would be a good first road bike, I'd say. Not too aggressive, so fairly comfortable if you're not used to a road position, but versatile enough to do all the things you want it to do.
So you not a gravel bike. What about you? Would you go similar path?
But only because they've specified a road bike.
Yeah, but you know, or they'd say a drop bar bike. You know, I mean, maybe I was. Would you sort of point someone in the direction of something, one of these super versatile?
I think it all stems back to, you know, asking the question of yourself: what do I actually need this bike for, or what do I want to do with it? What are my aspirations? You know, so if your aspirations were, well, within, you know, 18 months, 2 years, I want to be racing, then you'd point somebody at, you know, some of the brilliant entry level like aluminium race bikes that are out there. They're a minute, Cat 13, you know, Specialized Alley. Even, you know, Canyon's aluminium offerings, they're all really super smart, super sweet bikes. But if that's not your aspiration, then I'd much more prefer people to go after a bike that gave them the comfort, that's going to give them the enjoyment, that's just going to make everything about riding, you know, so much more fun. And, you know, that's all the big players. That's Giant Defy, you know, fabulous bike, Roubaix, Domani, you know. But then you get into the grey area of, well, do you go down that kind of more aggressive gravel bike, Cervelo Aspero, GT grade, even the Cannondale Topstone. That's a bike that's got rear suspension effectively, but it's got the same geometry as a Synapse. Yeah. And again, it's a question I asked of Cannondale on the Topstone launch. I said, do you not think this is going to kill Synapse? One, because, you know, the Synapse is a brilliant bike and I love it. You know, I it's another bike I've bought that I own. But the Topstone is so close to it. Coming from the gravel end of things, it's comparable to it on weight. Geometry is pretty much the same. But then if you go the other side with the new Cannondale Super 6 Evo, where they've instilled it with so much more comfort than the previous generation model, the Synapse is being squeezed from two sides. You know, if you can live with the slightly more aggressive geometry on the Super 6 Evo, it's lighter, it's just as comfortable, it's got decent tyre clearance, it's got all those factors. So this is one bike that's being squeezed from both sides, you know. And I think if you look at all the big players in the market out there, they all have a bike in their range which you think, is that becoming superfluous?
So the one bike thing, we think you could do it.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, no one wants to. It's like any hobby. You want to keep buying. You want to acquire gear acquisition syndrome. It's in everything.
Well,
so how far would you go?
Yeah, but I always think of it, if it's the worst case scenario and some evil faction of the government got away with, you had to license a bike, you had to ride around with a number plate on there, you had to think, right, well, it's going to cost me £400 or £500 to license every single bike I own. And I'd have to think, all right, I've got to get rid of all of these bikes and I've just got to keep one of them. And then one I would probably keep would, from the road side of things, a bit of Rondo HVRT.
Right.
From the gravel side of things, it'd be a GT grade.
Okay. So 2 bikes, that sounds sensible.
No, I'm saying if I can only have one.
If you
and
were
it would just
forced,
be whatever else.
Okay.
Whatever I was feeling that day, so that's pretty much how it.
Let's hope that doesn't play out.
This
that
never comes to
dystopian
pass.
future where we have to pay for riding our bicycles doesn't come to pass. Are you listening? Whatever government is in power when this comes out. But so what's the balance? What's a sensible 20 sounds like, unless you've got the money, you're an oligarch or you're Warren Rossiter, 20 bikes seems like an excessive number of bikes.
It is excessive, but I could put it in context. One of those bikes is an early 1960s bike that I've been promising to restore for the last 10 years, and I'm only about halfway through. There's a BMX in there. There's 3 mountain bikes, all out of date, all very old, but have sentimental value, so I'm going to get rid of them. There's fixed gear track bike, fixed gear road bike. There are 3 single speeds.
You're pretty much going through the trends of road cycling over the last few years.
It's just this ridiculous thing that I've been in this testing for so long. I always find these bikes I really like and I'm really have fun with, end up buying them.
Buying one a year is pretty legit.
Yeah, and I also think if you're testing bikes, you should be experiencing the pain of buying a bike.
Yeah, you
can't just live in a sweet shop your whole life.
Yeah,
you've actually got to go out and go. Well, I've paid real money for this, and
stand by your convictions.
Jesus, that's expensive.
It's quite interesting though. You're talking there about single speed bikes, fixed bikes. Yeah. It's the decade ago when they were all the rage, and they've obviously still gone out of fashion. There are still people riding them, particularly track riders, obviously with fixed gear, but that sort of the single speed is the best commuter. That seems to have gone and been replaced by the versatile road bike or the gravel bike. Is there a danger that in 10 years, when we have this conversation again and we're in our dotage and I'm just about ready to retire?
BikeRadar Podcast episode 375.
Virtual reality holograms into your houses, which are actually pods on the moon.
We're sat next to you.
But anyway, is there a danger we'd be going, do you remember gravel bikes?
Of course there's a risk that the bikes that we think now are like the cutting edge and this is the future will be the past. Doesn't matter. It's
inevitable.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop them being any more valuable. It doesn't stop being great. It doesn't stop people hankering off the 1960s, 1970s steel bikes, or some of the earliest examples of when people were thinking about aero, so like low pro time trial bikes with odd size wheels, or classics like the Cinelli Laser. People still love stuff for those things, even though they're hopelessly outdated. I like to think that as design's developing, as the technology of bike material science is developing, that it will end up as there'll be one bike that will be able to do it all, on the road and even on mountain bikes. If they can get a mountain bike with adaptive suspension technology that can change its geometry, on the fly sort of thing, then that's one bike for all, isn't it?
And will it be electric? Hey, you haven't even mentioned those.
Let's not talk about e-bikes.
Have we done? I mean, I think we've argued. Have we argued? We've discussed both. I don't think there's a conclusion here. I think it's good to have one bike. If you can only have one bike, only have one bike. If you can afford 20 bikes, have 20 bikes.
But think carefully about what you're going to use each.
What you're going to use them for. Don't buy something you're just going to sit and look at. Okay, well I think that draws an end to that conclusion. It's probably now time. So we just have a bit of a very very short chat about what have you lot been up to recently. What have you lot? There's only 2 of you. What have you been up to on bikes?
I think by the time this goes out, I'll have just come back from South Africa.
Right.
So I'm doing a 3-day mountain bike marathon race. So 200 and something K over 3 days in the Drakensberg.
On a gravel bike?
On a mountain bike.
Okay.
But what this means is that, so prior to the race, I've been doing a lot of mountain biking, a lot of cross country, trying to get miles in, of which my gravel bike has been a key component of my training,
Okay.
and it's been really good for that. So,
So that's another reason you should have more than one bike, because you can have a mountain bike to race on, but you're training on
training on a
something
gravel
else.
bike, yeah,
Or
just
on
because
road.
where I've been riding, doing a lot of my training, hasn't been the most engaging
really
of mountain bike
confused now.
training. So yeah,
I'm
N
so
plus
confused.
3. And then Bike of the Year is kicking off.
Okay, Warren.
Well, yeah, Bike of the Year is kicking off. So I'm assembling quite an extensive lineup of bikes to be involved in that. I guess recently been spending a lot of time riding Shimano's new GRX group set, their new gravel specific group set.
How are you finding it?
Well, I was really sceptical about it when they announced it to me back in February, because to me it looked like a collection of parts from the mountain bike ranges and a collection of parts from the road that had just been kind of mashed together. But then
So a
actually
mullet kind of scenario.
yeah, not a real group set, more of just just this mishmash of bits that they've pulled together. But actually, after using it for, riding it out in the States on the official launch in Montana, it was fabulous, and I've been spending lots and lots of time on it back here, and I'm super, super impressed.
Okay.
Is it Di2 and mechanical?
It is Di2 mechanical. I've got the Di2 version. The Di2 version is just, the new lever shape they've designed for Di2, which has got servo wave brake lever.
Okay.
It just means that you can. I mean, I was riding like the mountain bike trails in Montana, the Whitefish Trail Park, beautiful place. I'd recommend, if anybody's anywhere near it, I'd recommend it. But the trails there were, proper full-on mountain bike trails. So on your normal gravel bike, as you know, you need to be in the drops because you've got to get full power on the brakes. On the GT with the Di2 lever, because it's servo wave, I was braking from the hoods on these fast descents with one finger.
Are you going to see servo wave on Dura-Ace or Tegra, that stuff?
I don't know. I mean, my opinion that I came away with this new, because the new lever shape is so comfortable as well. It's also there because it's Di2, where you've got the third button sort of hidden under the hood. They've actually moved that to the side on that, and because I had the W111 Bluetooth antenna on it, I could set my Garmin up to slip between Garmin screens by just pressing the buttons on the hoods. So
Instead of changing gears.
Well, you could change gears with the normal levers, but then the secondary buttons. Can switch between.
Technology's taking over.
You can switch between Garmin, which means you don't have to do the dangerous thing of taking your hand off the bars to actually, find where you're going or whatever. You can just do it all, and it's just so intuitive, so good. And the new lever shapes are good, and the servo wave's so good. I've come to the conclusion is like, unless you're a serious competitive racer riding Dura-Ace, and so you spend all of your time in the drops, or most of your time in the drops, I don't know why on every other Shimano group they aren't servo wave, because any endurance rider out there, any just normal roadie that's not a super fast competitor, probably spends 95% of their time on the hoods.
Yeah.
So why not have the optimum braking from the hoods?
Yeah.
Instead of every time you want to brake when you're going down there, it's like, I've got to get myself into the drops and everything.
It's probably worth explaining as quickly and as briefly as you can what that is, what servo wave is.
Well, servo wave just affects the brake lever action, so it ramps up really quickly. So it's got a real fast action initially, and then you've got this kind of power band curve where it's really natural and incremental, and you don't end up having to grab big fistfuls of lever to get into the pure braking.
It pushes the pads onto the rotor quicker in its early phase, and then backs down, but the leverage comes up and you get the power.
So you get this really nice, it's just so progressive. And so you don't end up kind of snatching the brake or grabbing big fistfuls of brake. You just end up with incredible amount of control. And it's the fact you're getting that control from the hoods and not the drops. You can get it on a normal, disc brake, but you need to be down in the drops to actually be at the bottom end of the lever to get that kind of full.
And how's it done?
Yeah,
I mean, how's it done? How's it actuated? What's the?
They've made.
How have they done it? Basically,
it's just they've made the point of engagement of the pad. The pad moves quicker, on that initial pull of the lever, so it gets to the rotor much quicker than normal.
There's a valving in the lever, right?
Yeah. So you haven't got this clever jiggery pokery in the.
You just haven't got this the sort of dead zone that you get from a normal brake.
So disc brakes getting better. Shimano disc brakes getting better. Yeah. Sounds like you've both been having quite a lot of fun, actually.
What have you been doing?
I've just been making excuses not to ride my bike. I'm recovering from a very serious eye injury, as you know. I had a detached retina over the summer, so I haven't been doing as much riding as I should have been, but I've been mainly commuting, which is quite dull. I need to clean my long-term bike, my Ribble endurance SLR because it's very dirty. Sorry, Ribble, and it's making a lot of noises. I need to sort out what those noises are. But then I'm gonna start experimenting with different ways of carrying stuff to work.
Oh.
So I'm gonna be pseudo bike packing to work because I want to find ways to get to work without a big rucksack, and also find ways to get to work without getting a really wet arse.
All you need is just a
That's
credit
probably
card.
mud guards.
Isn't that right?
Credit card. I'm just going to get my chauffeur to drive me to work with the bike on the back, and I'll be fine, with slapping around. No, so and I just want to get out a bit more on my bike just as the rain starts. But that's kind of a weird thing. I actually tend to do more riding in the winter than the summer. I've got no idea why. It's just always been the way. Always been the way. I like those damp, dark nights of the soul. Anyway. I think that concludes the BikeRadar podcast for today, for this week, for this fortnight, for this month. Depends how you've been listening. If you like us, then make sure you subscribe to our podcast on all good podcast providers. Leave some comments, leave some reviews, and if you are watching us on the BikeRadar YouTube channel, give us a nice thumbs up, comment. Are we right about what?
Oh no, go on.
What are we right about? N+1. How many bikes have you got? Has anyone got more bikes than Warren? And do subscribe, of course, to the YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Warren.